Okay, D&D has released another video announcing the playtest for the Paladin and the Oath of Devotion subclass for that Paladin. So we're going to take a look at the video announcing the release, and they'll give us their thoughts on it, and we can react to those. So let's take a look at their video.
Hello everyone, I am here with Jeremy Crawford, and today we are talking about some new things with the Paladin as well as the subclass Oath of Devotion. So what are we seeing new with the class and also the subclass?
So the Paladin has been our luminous, divine smiting friend since 2014.
Correct.
And
Speed that
a
up a
lot
little.
of what people are going to see here is familiar
Clicking too much.
components of this beloved class, but with sometimes a new option, sometimes tuned up. And I think the resulting combination of new elements makes for an especially exciting version of this class. So, for example, one of the things that people have asked for the last 8 years is being able to smite punch.
It is kind of an obsession, Smite
And
Punch.
so, how could I say no? It is here. We want people to playtest it. The people are going to see in Divine Smite that not only does it now work with unarmed strikes, it also works with ranged weapons.
Ooh.
We wanted paladins to feel like they
That is a big change. Now, the smite punch, I hadn't ever heard anybody want to smite punch. I like bear smites with a druid paladin multi-class, but I haven't heard smite punch. But being able to add ranged attacks, being able to add smite to your ranged attacks, that is a huge change, and I can see a lot of different things happening with that. Sub, classes that generally are ranged. Rangers and rogues both have a lot of ranged options. And being able to throw in a couple levels of paladin and be able to smite arrow along with your sneak attack damage, I can see some huge changes in that. And my understanding was that they didn't allow that originally because that was overpowered, and so here it is. So let's see what else they have to say about that, because that seems like a big change.
had more room to explore their role as these oath-bound sacred warriors. And that can take a variety of forms.
Right.
Sure, the classic D&D paladin is a melee combatant, but the game has evolved, players' tastes evolve, and people want to make paladins that are serving out justice with their fists or with ranged weapons, and so Divine Smite
Sure.
will now support that.
The number of times I'm at a table where the Paladin's like, can I use Divine Smite with my bow though, please? And there's like a lot of bargaining. Yeah, so I'm not shocked.
Now, in addition to this exciting set of options for Divine Smite, there is also now a limit placed on Divine Smite. We have now made it clear that Divine Smite can be used no more than once per turn. And
Yeah.
I think this is a small price to pay for the additional options. And also, all of us who've been playing the game for
That is a little bit of a downgrade on the ability. As you have multiple attacks, being able to smite with each of them. It did lead to a lot of big Nova builds that are designed to do just a ton of damage in like round one and then peter out. So I'm assuming that's a little bit of a balance issue. So that increase the viability of ranged smites, but then lowering the maximum amount of smites per turn kind of seems like a balance. So I feel like that's all right.
the last 8 years
Yeah.
have also at tables when, because paladins could do smite attack after attack after attack, it can too quickly turn into the rest of the party being a group of bystanders observing the paladin do everything.
I've never been at a table where everyone just sat back and watched it. A Paladin go full Nova. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, there are going to be some salty Paladin players.
But again,
Yeah.
the flip side is you get to use Divine Smite in more ways than you ever could before.
Yeah.
Connected with this, in this same Unearthed Arcana, we have also
Being able to use smite in more ways than you could before opens up some new options. But for the player that just wants to be a melee smiter, they don't care. They don't care about your other options. So, I mean, like I said, I think it's a decent balance, but that particular argument isn't all that great.
revised all of the smite spells that were in the 2014 Player's Handbook. Those spells were often clunky to use because you cast it, you were then concentrating until the effect went off. that extra little hiccup of time between the casting and the spell actually doing its thing meant often people just decided, I'm not going to cast them. And so we've changed how those spells work so that they're more immediate. Because now it's as simple as right after you hit somebody with a weapon strike or an unarmed strike, if you have one of these spells prepared and it's your turn, you can use a bonus action and bam, cast the spell.
Nice.
So if it's your turn, so you can't smite on a reaction any longer. No, you can't use, okay, you can still smite on a reaction. You can't use one of these special spells as a react on your reaction turn. Whereas you could before, I guess, if you worked everything out just right. So I guess that's not a huge downgrade. I like that. It always was weird to me that you had to decide to Thunderous Smite before you attacked. And then if you missed, and then it's still just floating around there for later. That was always weird to me. I like it being more of a reaction to hitting, kind of like using your regular Divine Smite ability. So I think that's a good change.
So it's much more immediate of just, I want this smite effect now.
Right.
And so then it becomes much more about, when you're deciding as a paladin player, do I want to do regular Divine Smite or cast one of the Smite spells? It's about the effects those spells bring versus just the raw damage of Divine Smite. And it's easier to make that decision on the fly. I'm going to do it. Now, you cannot do both on the same turn, because Divine Smite also is clear now that you cannot use it on the same turn that you cast spells. Because in a sense is almost like casting a spell. It's not technically casting one, but you are burning a spell slot to do it.
Right.
And we had to control, after a long time of allowing a lot of novaing, get it to rein it in just a little bit.
Paladins were borderline rogue assassins.
So you can't cast a spell and smite. So on my turn, I can't attack and smite something and then like healing word an ally. I don't know, that feels kind of bad. Is that how that worked before? I've only played a paladin in a one shot, so I'm not 100% sure. But was it a bonus action to use it before, or was it just automatic? You could just use your smite. I mean, like for these smite spells, sure. But like just using your divine smite, was that a bonus action before, or could you have attacked, done your divine smite, and then followed up with a bonus action healing word or something like that? Let me know in the comments how that worked before.
Basically,
more options is a theme.
Okay.
In the Paladin that's in this Unearthed Arcana. Not only do you have more options for your Divine Smite, you have more options at higher levels with Lay on Hands. So in the original 2014 Lay on Hands, you could use this pool of healing to heal people or remove the poisoned condition or disease. Now, later, at high level, we give you the ability to spend 5 hit points, as you could to remove the poison condition, to remove one of the conditions from a whole list of options.
Oh, okay.
So essentially, at high level, your Lay on Hands becomes more versatile. We also give you a new way to use your Channel Divinity as a Paladin. You still get Channel Divinity at 3rd level, just like you did in 2014. But now, at 9th level, you get an Abjure Foes ability, which allows you to fill foes all around you with essentially divine awe. And we wanted to give your Channel Divinity a few more options, and also you have more uses. So the Paladin in 2014 had precious few uses of their Channel Divinity.
Right.
You're now going to start with 2 a day, and the ability to regain a use when you take a short rest, but then that number of uses goes up as you level up. Same thing is present in the current version of the Druid in the playtest.
Yeah.
So you're going to have more uses of your Channel Divinity. Divine Sense is now a part of that. So the Paladin also before had a number of abilities that all had their own number of uses you had to track. You had to track a number of uses for Divine Sense. You had to track the healing pool for Lay on Hands. You had to track the number of uses for Cleansing Touch, and so on and so forth. What we've done is we've now made it so that, oh, and of course you also had your spell slots. We've now made it so that you...
Cleansing Touch didn't have its own uses, did it? Wasn't that just using 5 hit points out of your pool? Am I thinking of something different? I thought you could use 5 hit points out of your Lay on Hands pool to do the Cleansing Touch stuff. Maybe I'm misremembering that.
You have your pool of healing for Lay on Hands, you have Channel Divinity, and you have your spells. And so those other things like Divine Sense, what was formerly called Cleansing Touch, which is now called Restoring Touch, and that's actually what beefs up your Lay on Hands now. All of those are now flowing through more sort of shared conduits, but also now you get more uses of your Channel Divinity with this in mind. We have also changed how your auras work. Before, paladins had these sort of multiple auras,
Mm-hmm.
and then each aura like it was expanding at a particular level, and then your subclass might give you an aura.
Right.
What we're now doing to make it easier for paladin players to track, but also easier for us to make cool things later that affect your aura, is in the base class you have now just a single aura, and that aura gains new effects. So, and that's important because then what that means is later, like we do as people will see in the Oath of Devotion, we can say that aura of protection that you have as a paladin
Right.
now has this additional function.
Right.
And when that aura gets bigger at a higher level, well,
That seems like a nice simplification to make it easier for players. Simply giving one aura, and then you can add different effects to it. I could see there was, aura spells. I could see those spells just adding to the the paladin's aura. Of course, that means it's harder for other classes like the bard to use magical secrets to get spells like that. But it would be interesting to just simplify it that way.
it carries with it the additional features that you've gotten from your subclass or a magic item or some other source. So it allows us to give the paladin more goodies if it makes sense to enhance their auras in various ways.
Perfect.
So there is a lot going on here, including something that people will also see in the new version of the Druid, and that is a beefed up epic boon at 20th level.
Okay.
So digging through the playtest feedback over the last few months, we've seen consistently people wanting that 20th level feature to have some more heft.
Right.
And also for the epic boon feats to be more epic. We've listened to that feedback and we have started a revision process on all of the epic boon feats. Just a few of them appear in this UA, but people will get to see where we're headed. So it first starts with the epic boon feature. And again, both the paladin and the druid have this. As we revise the other classes, they will get this version of epic boon as well. So first what it does now is it increases an ability score of your choice by 2, and it can go over 20. So this has been actually one of the most requested features for characters at 20th level is, can I finally go over 20?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes, and at least for now in the playtest. And I hope it makes it because I think it's a lot of fun. Then when you get to the epic boon feats, they, in addition to having whatever benefit it is that they provided, they also include within them an ability score increase, and it can also allow you to go over 20. But
so when you hit 20, you can take an ability score up 2, and you also get a feat that you can also take an ability score up 2. So when you hit level 20, like say you're a paladin and you've got a 20 charisma, or 20 strength, you can automatically take that to 24 when you hit level 20, plus gain the benefit of the feat. Some of the epic boon feats I thought were pretty mediocre. There was clearly some that were better than others, so I'm hoping they do some balancing on that, but this is an interesting addition. You could also take 2 ability scores up 2, so have 2 22s or 1 24 when you hit 20. I mean, I suppose it's not a big deal because we did a poll the other day, and almost nobody ever plays anything at 20. There was a couple people that played at 20 one-shot, just like a one-shot adventure with level 20, but most people don't make it to 20 anyway, so I guess this stuff isn't going to be game-breaking. It's okay to be game-breaking when the game's pretty broken at level 20 anyway.
Still no higher than 30. 30 is still the cap for the whole game.
I'm like, no cap. Let's ability score, strength 40.
And the ability score increases aside, we are also...
Of course, also then if you're a barbarian, in the 5e version, you could take your stats up to, was it 24? So could you then do 2 more jumps and have a 28 strength on your barbarian? That'd be pretty good too. That's a beefy barbarian.
Also looking at revising the epic boon feats benefits themselves. And
Right.
again, people will see some of that revision in this Unearthed Arcana, and we'll see more in future UAs. Now, if people are curious, is this going to unbalance high-level play? Fear not, because part of our work on the new version of the monster manual is we are beefing up high CR monsters, and they are not going to be troubled that much.
I don't like the sound of this
by,
at all.
by 20th level characters having a score to above 20.
Right. So as powerful as you may feel now. Yeah. Wait till the new player's handbook monster manual. Yeah.
Yeah, because speaking of the monster manual, one of the pieces of feedback we've heard for years is, again, higher CR monsters. People would love for them to feel more formidable.
I would really like to see some of those. I mean, getting all these classes and race options or species options along with the classes is all fine and dandy. I'd like to see how they all match up against some of the monsters. I wish that they would release just some of the new monster stat blocks and stuff along with these, so we could see. We can fight fifth edition monsters, but we don't really. It's not really play testing if we aren't going against the actual monsters that they want us to fight. So I would love. This is my plea to Wizards of the Coast. Please release us some of the monsters so that we can use those in our playtests. Thank you. Have a nice day. But don't go anywhere, because I was just saying that to my Wizards of the Coast. We still got more video.
And sometimes that's because those monsters have been melted by a paladin who novas.
Often the case.
Yes.
I'm surprised you don't want to bring back strength 1877 back. You don't like that whole this one ability score just has like a furthering definition that just gets stretched.
Oh, I enjoyed it back then. It wouldn't make sense in the game of today.
No, it doesn't really function. So okay, perfect. Well, we've got a subclass to delve into. Tell me about the Oath of Devotion.
So the Oath of Devotion, here again, we've looked for ways that we can tease out what's beloved in this subclass, protect it, and enhance. So one of the enhancements that is here and will be in the other Paladin subclasses that we explore is once per day you can cast one of your Oath spells without a spell slot. So rather than your Oath spell list just being here are some extra spells I have prepared, but I can also cast one of them. One of the reasons we're doing this is Paladins don't have many spell slots, and this is also true for Rangers compared to, say, a Cleric or a Druid. And often, Paladins are burning their spell slots on Divine Smite. So we wanted to make it so that it was easier for the Paladin to actually cast one of their Oath spells.
I like that. I like that they can cast one of them without using a spell slot. But the fact that they have less spell slots than like a dedicated caster is because they have a lot of other things they can do. That was the balance between a full caster and a partial caster. So I don't know that argument holds any water, and being able to do it once a day isn't really game breaking or anything. So I don't have a problem with it. I think it's fine. I just always find it interesting the justifications they give for doing things, because their justifications never make any sense. So we'll see.
And not feel like it was competing with their Divine Smiting or however else they're deciding to use their spell slots.
Yeah.
It's one free cast, so the others are still going to require spell slots, but even that one free cast will help some of this fun utility and flavorful magic see more play than we've seen in the past 8 years.
Okay.
We've also made it so that Paladins of this oath will much more easily be able to use their Sacred Weapon Channel Divinity option, because it's now a bonus action to use rather than an action. And so you won't feel like you're giving up your whole turn to fill your weapon with holy power. Now you're going to be able to do that much more easily.
That always felt bad in a lot of cases when you're trying to use a major class feature, but it takes you the whole round to do it. And so you're like, okay, well, I'm going to use my entire round to do all this, and then I'll stand around and wait till next round to do things. There's a lot of classes that have that same issue. I had a Hexblade Warlock that would spend the first round of every combat either using Darkness or Shadows of Moil or whatever it is to set up his abilities. So yes, he was a juggernaut once he got going, but sometimes combat's only lasted 3 or 4 rounds, and I'm using a third of that time to get ready for the battle. That always felt bad. So same kind of thing with this. I like that you're able to use the abilities that set up the battle, set up your character to be able to use his abilities correctly without having to forego a whole round of combat to do it.
I mentioned before the integration of auras, so you're going to see that in the Oath of Devotion, where the Aura of Devotion that before was, again, one of those additional auras, instead is enhancing your aura of protection that you get as a paladin. Now, one of the things that is, to me, especially exciting is because the paladin is now getting their cap ability at 14th level instead of 20th level, that Holy Nimbus ability, it means they're going to get to burst with Divine Light many levels earlier than they could before. And because it's connected to their aura, it will naturally scale as they level up, because after they get it,
it'll keep getting better.
They then later get a feature that expands their aura. And so that will then also improve the Holy Nimbus that they got at 14th level.
Holy Nimbus.
That again, if I were going to go back to a theme for the Paladin in this UA is integration and more options. A feeling like the pieces of the Paladin are singing together better,
Right.
And you have more ways to use them.
And less economy, like you're having to like track so much or getting in the way of other abilities constantly, which was very common.
Another example of that is we've now put in the base class a new feature at 5th level called Faithful Steed, where every Paladin will just have Fine Steed prepared, and you can cast it as an action.
Perfect.
Again, with this theme of being able to do your Paladin stuff a little easier.
Yeah.
And this includes a whole new version of Fine Steed. So just as in the Druid, we explore these new stat blocks that grow with the Druid, we now have a stat block for Fine Steed that grows with the Paladin, or at least more accurately, grows with the spell slots you spend on it. So if you want a more powerful steed,
Right.
you're going to be able to do that by using higher level spell slots to summon it. You also have really neat options now where before you decided purely for aesthetic reasons whether the steed was a celestial or a fey or a fiend. Well, now those choices actually determine a special ability in the steed. If you choose fey, your paladin steed, or I should say divine steed, because members of other classes could gain this spell as well, your fey steed can fey step. Your fiendish steed can strike terror into people.
Like a nightmare.
And your celestial steed can heal. Now,
cool.
each of these abilities are very limited in use, but again, they give more solidity to the flavor that was there before, and actually
Right.
sort of give game options that back up
Yeah, it
the
gives you
flavor
more
that we had in the
options.
2014 version.
I mean, this is a clear
Like more
evolution of like how people
options.
have been wanting to play. You know, I mean, the playtest never really stopped.
Right, exactly,
So, yeah.
exactly. And because we did this new version of Fine Steed, and the Druid is in the same playtest, and the Druid now has a feature that lets them cast Find Familiar,
Right.
we also include a new version of Find Familiar, where the Familiar has its own stat block and has various options where, again, your creature type choice determines abilities inside
Oh,
the
fun.
stat block. So you can make it so that the different type of familiar actually has different abilities.
Like, I have to ask, like, what all types of familiars? Is there an aberration familiar? I only ask because my wife has a familiar that is literally like a squidling.
So this version of Find Familiar is very much a new version of the 2014 Find Familiar. And so we do not go all in on every type of creature. We focus on, just as back then, Celestials, Fiends, and Fae.
Yeah, makes sense.
But we still have the Warlock coming.
That's
And,
my player.
and this new version of Find Familiar is going to be a really fun infrastructure for us to use in the Warlock, because the Warlocks already have an option that involves Find Familiar, and we can do more now that we have a familiar-specific stat block.
Right.
There's more we can now do in a class like the Warlock to play around with that stat block.
I just want it to be known. I'm seeing a lot of buffs to the cleric and the life cleric and the paladin. So I the whole Fine Steed, Divine Steed. I just want to, when the Necromancer comes out, it needs make it easier to bring undead into the fold.
Oh, don't you worry.
Give us creepy characters like a little bit more bandwidth.
A spoiler for future UAs that
This is the second video in a row he talked about how creepy he is. I mean, come on, man. I guess lean into it, Do what you're good at.
Necromancer Wizard will be in the playtest later this year, and one of our goals there is absolutely going to be make it easier to actually be a Necromancer.
So many people don't want to hear that. That's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Perfect. I guess that's it. All right, and then maybe in a couple of weeks we'll have some follow-up videos that delve a little bit more into why that was designed this way or wasn't designed that way, and why this new feature.
All right. So that is their Paladin and Oath of Devotion announcement. I believe the playtest material is out there, so go check that out. And we'll go live on YouTube later and discuss it. So come by and hang out and give me your thoughts there. Let me know what you thought of all this down in the comments. And those are my thoughts. So I think that's going to do it for this video. And until I see you again, keep on hacking the dungeon.